That's cleanmyac.com.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock. Nice looking Thursday morning. And Thursdays, we have our Veterans program on every Thursday at 9 o'clock. And so hopefully you heard that earlier today. And as we get closer to Veterans Day, I mean, we have a lot of different events happening around town. Robin and I attended an event up in Chattanooga a month ago, and one of the events at the event was to, well, because we're in entertainment, so there was a Hilarity for Charity event, and it's I can't wait to tell you more about it. As long as I can't tell you, I don't know much about it myself. But we're going to be part of this, and it's to raise money to help people with Alzheimer's. And if you've ever known anybody that has been a victim, I guess that's a good word, of Alzheimer's, it is really a sad disease. I watched the lady, smart lady. She was a nurse. She lived at a nursing home, and she had some kind of dementia. I don't know. I think at that time they weren't sure. Like, I think I remember them saying that Alzheimer's could only be diagnosed in the autopsy. Yeah. But I think they've changed that now. But yes. The point is, she went downhill very quick. And I guess everybody has their own story on how fast it progresses. Dr. Theresa Gleason is on the phone. She's a cognitive neuropsychologist. She's the acting deputy chief research and development officer at the Department of Veterans Affairs in the Office of Research and Development. She's coming on to speak to us not only about thanking our veterans for their service and to honor and discuss the VA's emphasis on continued research and services of Alzheimer's disease. Dr. Gleason, thank you for what you're doing. Before I say thank you for being on this show, because what you're doing is way bigger than being on this little show. Good morning, Doctor.
Oh, good morning, and thank you, Larry and Robin, for having us. It's great to talk to you.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
Washington, D.C. All
right.
Nice.
Alzheimer's is a crazy disease. It's just so sad to see people's lives just unravel as they get progressively worse.
Right. I mean, Alzheimer's disease is one of the most common forms of dementia, and November is National Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month. So it's really important that we have the conversation and increase awareness about the disease and about what's being done to increase advances and scientifically as well from the VA that will contribute to better treatment and better detection.
And the VA has been doing research on Alzheimer's, and I'm guessing it's been a long time. Any news about any treatments that you seem to agree work, or maybe even a cure?
Right. So, I mean, you brought up the complex question in front of us. When the brain cells deteriorate, how to prevent those and how to actually treat if somebody is going down the pathway in Alzheimer's disease. So recent advances showed from a VA study that vitamin E supplementation can make a difference in delaying the progression, not reversing totally the progression, but delaying the progression. So that was an interesting finding. VA researchers in San Francisco are using all kinds of neuroimaging techniques and modalities to try and understand the changes that are occurring at the level of a human brain and in dementia as well. So that information will help us target potential places for drug therapy in the future.
Is dementia more prevalent in veterans because of the initial stress that they have to deal with while they're in service?
That's a great question. We're looking at potential associations, and I think an individual, by the time they reach later life, have a whole profile of potential risk factors. So some of the risk factors that may arise in military service may in fact convey additional risk later in life. Things like traumatic brain injuries or environmental exposures that you wouldn't necessarily have if you weren't serving in the military. But one condition that does show a higher risk is having served as a prisoner of war, higher risk for Alzheimer's disease.
Really? Now, one of the things, I worked for 3 years at an assisted living facility, and I don't tell you that to even pretend to be an expert on this. But let me just tell you what I did. I did activities. So I wasn't a medical professional in any way, but I was witness to it. And once in a while, and I'm a big guy, and that's important to tell you for this reason. One of the wings at this assisted living facility was a locked area, and it was specifically for dementia patients. And once in a while, one of them would become very angry and violent. And I was told that it was a part of the Alzheimer's disease that they're going. Even if they were if they were Mr. Rogers all their life, all of a sudden they could enter into this one time period as they're going through Alzheimer's and become violent. And I was called to go back there because I'm a big guy, just to see if I could hold a man back until they had some better help, you know. Mm-hmm. And it was a sad thing to see because I knew the guy before he got to that point. Connecting that to the veterans, do you think there's a latent maybe PTSD thing that surfaces because of Alzheimer's? And the violent guys were always guys. The women never became violent.
Well, that's a really interesting question, and thank you for sharing that story, which really brings the kind of personal effects to what a sad situation can happen over time. But the effect or the changes in the brain are really diffuse. And the common symptom of violence, and even at a certain point in the day, it is also pretty common in Alzheimer's. Whether or not it's specifically related to PTSD, it has not been found as an association, but may over time be identified as a high association. It goes back to an individual's risk profile of circumstances that build over their lifetime. So some of the other work that we're doing is looking at genetic risk and the potential genetic contribution to Alzheimer's disease as well. And by understanding that, we may also identify, again, individual approaches to how we would prevent or treat the disorder.
Does the VA have facilities where the veterans that have been diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's are able to live, or do they have to live at regular assisted living facilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are residential facilities, but there are assisted living. But there is also caregivers in the community, and you may know someone who cares for a family member at home. And we have research to try to be able to support those individuals as well, because we know they're at quite a high level of risk and potential for other problems because of the care burden that they're taking on.
The work that you do is regarding research. Does it indicate anything that is therapeutic for somebody who has Alzheimer's? And by therapeutic, I mean even just physical activity. You always hear these stories about doing crossword puzzles, etc. Any of that true?
Right. I think that actually has a grounding in fact, and that is that keeping your brain active all through life, but diet and exercise is also shown to have a potential beneficial effect. One of the large studies that VA just concluded showed that vitamin E supplementation will delay the progression of Alzheimer's disease. And so there's all kinds of different, convergence of evidence that talk about lifestyle effects and benefits of things such as exercise.
Does vitamin E have to be taken as a supplemental, like a pill, or does it occur naturally in certain foods?
Right, it occurs naturally, but this looked at a supplement of a certain dose. and that delayed the decline of cognitive functioning or cognitive changes in patients with mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. So that's an interesting thing to think about. That would be supplemental in addition to what would be naturally occurring.
Sometimes people think that the alternative and the solution is sedation. You hear about parents giving their children Ritalin if they don't want to, take that extra step to find out what's going on. Is the VA clinics developing any kind of sedatives or some kind of drugs that could help with this? Because I would hate for somebody to, have Alzheimer's and then they be lethargic for the rest of their lives.
Well, that's such an important consideration, and it's so important, again, to emphasize the need for a really good medical evaluation, and if necessary, a treatment plan. A treatment plan wouldn't be, well, let's sedate the individual for the rest of their life, but let's look at the individual symptoms and see how they can be managed or controlled. So something like a violent episode or anxiety. I think there's high anxiety in Alzheimer's disease. Those things may be primed for some kind of pharmacological treatment, but overall the case management and the case management approach as a team is really important.
Well, it looks like I need to buy a crossword puzzle book, get some vitamin E, and get a little bit more exercise. It sounds like those are the three things that maybe ward off any Alzheimer's disease.
Eat salad.
I don't mean to make light of it. It's obviously, it is a sad disease. Every time I've seen anybody who was changed over the course of time by Alzheimer's, you really have a sense of sadness.
Yes.
Doctor, thank you for what you're doing and for being on the air with us today. Before we say goodbye, can you give our listeners a website, please?
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's www.research.va.gov.
Okay.
And we should all thank our veterans on Veterans Day.
And every day.
Please.
Dr. Gleason, thank you for what you're doing. We'll take a little break and be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Egypt and Russia say it's too early to say why a Russian